Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. Well, many a story has been written about the inevitable decline of the family farm, but this isn't one of them. While farming can certainly be a volatile business, it is also, at least in the past few years, quite profitable. Since 2010, farm profits have grown by about 20%. In fact, of all the farms reporting annual income of over $1 million in the last 2 years, 4 out of 5 were family-owned farms flush with cash. As OETA's Lis Exon reports, it's a resurgence that's being driven by some of the very same forces reshaping much of America: technology-driven globalization.
The combines traversing these acres of corn near Garber are driven by young men who have farming in their blood. The oldest is 25-year-old Travis Schneithman. The youngest is his brother, 17-year-old Tyler.
My little brother and I, one of our favorite things to do is after it rains to just drive around and look at the fields, you know, that green up just right after rain. And
it's really great to wake up in the morning and know that you're having a part in, you know, feeding the world, seeing the food in the grocery store. I really enjoy it. I enjoy it when it rains, going out looking at crops.
Both began farming when they were just little boys. They drove the tractors, nursed the animals, and did just about anything their father or grandfather directed them to do. The brothers are fifth-generation farmers. The Schneithman farm was homesteaded in 1893 by their great-great-grandfather.
Last 100 years, there's been good times and bad times, the golden years, and that's some in the teens. We had the 70s that were golden years. And really now, I feel like we're experiencing some of the best times production agricultural scene.
Travis says they have increased their yields by 20% in the last 7 years because of crop rotation.
We grow wheat, canola, double crop soybeans, corn, as well as alfalfa.
Yields have also increased since Travis graduated from OSU with a degree in ag business and encouraged his father to make some changes.
My dad was a little bit slow to adopt auto steer technology, GPS, and so I would come home and plant most of the wheat, and it's nice because I could run the tractor till midnight and not be tired and be able to do it because of GPS.
Travis explains because of GPS and auto steering, they can not only work longer but be more precise in the field. Mapped by computers in their combines, they reduce overlap in the fields by up to 10 inches. That means they can plant more and be more efficient during harvesting. Travis also uses his iPad as a farm management tool. By using soil samples and yield data, he can calculate exactly how much fertilizer is needed on specific acres. College taught Travis a lot, but so did being a member of Future Farmers of America while in high school. He served as state president and also received the nation's top FFA honor of American Star Farmer. Tyler is following in his brother's footsteps.
I have an SAE program, which is a Supervised Agriculture Experience program, which is basically just a hands-on way to get involved in FFA, and that's what I'm doing out here with my SAE program. I'm also involved in public speaking, livestock judging, as well as I also exhibit show lambs in the fall and spring.
Last year, Tyler was awarded this FFA trophy at the Tulsa State Fair for raising the Grand Champion Market Lamb. Both brothers have countless awards and trophies they have earned through FFA. Guiding them and all other future farmers are ag teachers who serve the dual role of FFA chapter advisors in 352 school districts across the state. But having enough advisors to supervise and encourage agriculture students is becoming problematic.
There is a teacher shortage in the state of Oklahoma as far as agriculture education teachers.
43 new teachers are receiving summer training before heading into the classrooms. Because of the shortage of teachers, some in this room have received alternative certification to teach, meaning they don't have a traditional ag degree. Still, the state is short 4 teachers for next school year. Jack Staats is the program supervisor over agriculture education. He says because of low pay and the rigors of the job, many ag teachers are turning to other careers. And he says only 2% of ag students become farmers and ranchers.
It's just a pretty hard way to make a living at times, where you talk about the hours, where you talk about, in today's time, when you talk about the investment, when you talk about the amount of land, the amount of equipment that it takes to be successful in an operation. That's pretty hard for young people.
Because of the expense it takes to get into the business, Most new farmers have to have a lifeline, a parent or a grandparent or a uncle, or just a good benevolent farmer who wants to turn it over to a younger person.
Agriculture Secretary Jim Reese says the aging of baby boomers is also depleting the ranks of farmers.
The average age of the farmers today is 58, and we do have an aging population of farmers. And are there enough young farmers? No. And do we need to provide more avenues to make it easier for farmers to make that transition? Yes.
Travis Schneithman encourages young people to make a career out of farming because with determination, he says it is profitable. Travis says with a finite amount of land and a projected world population growth, farming is going to be even more profitable in the coming years.
We've got to produce as much food in the next 40 years as we had in the last 8,000, and that's something to just, I mean, we've basically got to double food production in the next 40 years. And so with that being said, I think it's going to create great opportunity, and I think really the farmers, the guys that are involved in agriculture are really more or less sitting in the driver's seat.
Travis says it's a place he will be for the rest of his lifetime, carrying on a family tradition that carries an immense sense of accomplishment and satisfaction.
Well, prior to World War II, it took about 100 hours of labor to produce close to 100 bushels of corn. Today, it takes roughly 2 hours to do the same. Continuous advancements in technology have grown farm output by about 170% over the last 60 years, all with less labor and on less land. Yet at the heart of the farm boom is the growth of the middle class around the world and their changing diet. Increased demand for chicken and pork translates into increased demand for feed grains like corn, soybeans, and wheat, and surging farm incomes. Earlier, I was able to sit down with Jason Henderson with the Federal Reserve Bank. It seems as if the middle of America fared better in this past recession than people on both coasts. Is rural America leading the recovery?
Rural America is leading the recovery, really being led by the Great Plains region and here in Oklahoma. A lot of it has been driven by commodities. Energy and agriculture, commodity prices are fairly high, and it's leading to increased profitability for those sectors, and that's spilling over into the rural communities and on rural main streets. The other thing is that it's not just in terms of the commodity-based aspects of it, but when you look at the manufacturing sectors in rural America, they're also based upon energy and also based upon agriculture in terms of equipment and just food processing. And what we're enjoying and seeing in those industries is stronger export activity coming from agriculture and some of the services on the energy side.
So for those industries where exports are so important, how important are emerging economies like India and Brazil and China?
The BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, are hugely important for U.S. exporters. I think not only here in the near term, but also I think long term. By 2040, they're supposed to be 4 of the 5 largest economies: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And as they raise their standards of living, they want more household amenities. They want to eat better foods, and all of this opens up a strong demand for food and energy, and which is our commodity-based industries. And so that's leading and driving, I think, new opportunities for rural America.
Now later in our show, we'll talk to the chair of the House Ag Committee about farming without a farm bill. But first, when we return, we'll ask the question, does what goes up come crashing down?